a bid to ensure accountability and transparency in the recovery and management of funds and properties by anti-corruption agencies in Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, on the 12th of May 2022, signed the Proceeds of Crime, Recovery and Management Act (POCA) into law. The signing of the act heralded a turning point in the war against corruption in Nigeria. Experts believe that the POCA would improve the ability of law enforcement agencies to seize, freeze, and confiscate stolen assets in Nigeria without contravening human rights law or any other related laws in the Constitution. Welcome to Corruption Must Go, ICPC's weekly television program. I am your host, Murna Barnabas Atiai. Today on the program, we shall beam our searchlight on the recently passed Proceeds of Crime, Recovery and Management Act (POCA) and its significance in enhancing ICPC's effort in the tracking and management of proceeds of crime. But first, Ruth Awodi is standing by with updates on happenings around the world of the Commission. Over to you, Ruth.
Thank you, Murna. I am Ruth Awodi with Anti-Corruption Stories. In another development, ICPC has called on non-governmental organizations, NGOs, to collaborate with statutory agencies in the fight against social vices and to promote national ethics and integrity in the country. The chairman of ICPC, Professor Bolaji Owasonye, SAN, who was represented by a board member of the commission, Dr. Louis Solomon Mandama, MNI, stated this when members of a non-governmental organization, the Campaign Against All Tools That Trigger Anti-Social Vices, visited the commission. Owasonye noted that it was the responsibility of NGOs to collaborate with statutory agencies to ensure that social vices such as examination malpractice, political hooligans, cultism, drug abuse, targeted assassination, abductions, terrorism, and cybercrimes were eradicated in the society.
And that's why all the staff here knows it. Those that the necessary one that will go there and interrogate some of the things, especially on synergy within the policing structure in the country. All these things we are talking of, all the needs that are put into the system that we cannot even understand. The key word that has led to all these things is corruption. And when we talk of corruption, we think corruption is only in ICPC and other anti-graft agencies. But that's not it. Religiously, in the holy books that we all go through, a bribe makes even a righteous person twist the truth. If we are fighting corruption here and Mr. President keeps on talking of fighting corruption, he's not talking. The holy books have prescribed it and have asked the admonished us to do what? To abstain. Once you collect bribe, you cannot talk, you cannot see again. So may it not be our portion.
Earlier in his remarks, the national convener of the Campaign Against All Tools That Trigger Antisocial Vices, Pastor Henry Hillary, said no religion promotes antisocial behaviors.
Should we fold our hands as God's people, as the imams, as the pastors and the reverends, keep quiet and see Nigeria going the way it's going today? We say no, there is need for the imamship and the pastoralship in these parliamentary agencies to come together and establish a synergy to campaign against all tools that trigger antisocial vices.
He further noted that the group was proposing a national interfaith military and paramilitary security summit whose objective was to foster mutual understanding, trust, and better relationship between civilians and uniformed security operatives for maximum security in general. In a related development, ICPC has forged a collaboration with the Anambra Broadcast Service, ABS OKA, in a bid to drive the anti-corruption message to the grassroots in the state. The resident anti-corruption commissioner, RAC, Mr. Godwin Oche, explained that the collaboration would enable the two agencies to synergize and derive mutual benefits. The Iraq made these remarks when he paid a courtesy visit to the managing director of ABS, Sir Chido Obidegu, in his office in Oka recently. Mr. Oches said that the visit was to, among other things, identify with the crucial role the broadcast media play in tackling corruption, particularly in the sensitization of the citizens against the menace. He added that the board of the commission had established the ICPC office in Anambra State in order to take the activities of ICPC closer to the people and requested to leverage on the large audience and reach enjoyed by ABS to educate and enlighten the people to stay away from corruption. In his response, Sir Obidegu said the ABS was ever ready to collaborate with ICPC to achieve the state's vision of a smart and prosperous homeland by fighting corruption to a standstill. That will be all on this segment. Corruption Must Go continues with Muna. Stay with us.
Fellow Nigerians, do you know that constituency projects are actually your projects? Do you know that constituency projects are funded by the federal government? Do you know that you can track release of constituency project funds for projects located in your constituency and follow up to know how they have been executed? Constituency projects happen because government does not want to leave any community out in development efforts. You have a responsibility to know what constituency project has been planned for your community, how much has been allocated for it, and whether value for money has been delivered. Take ownership of constituency projects located in your community. Protect them because they belong to you. Government knows about your needs and is planning for you. Government needs your help to ensure quality delivery. Know that constituency projects are actually your projects. Protect your constituency project. My constituency, my project.
For information on funds allocated to projects in your constituency, call 0800 2255 4272.
This message is from the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission and the National Orientation Agency.
If you're just tuning in, this is Corruption Must Go. And our focus is on the recently passed Proceeds of Crime Recovery and Management Act, POCA. The POCA is a legislative scheme for the recovery of criminal assets, with criminal confiscation being the most commonly used power. Confiscation occurs after a conviction has taken place. However, other means of recovering the proceeds of crime which do not require a conviction are provided for in the Act, namely civil recovery, cash seizure, and taxation powers. The aim of the asset recovery schemes in POCA is to deny criminals the use of their assets, recover the proceeds of crime, and disrupt and deter criminality. The ICPC chairman, Professor Bolaji Owasonye, SAN, at a one-day capacity building training on POCA and Money Laundering Act 2022, stated that the POCA Act would help address the architectural gaps in the fight against corruption in Nigeria, as it would afford ICPC and other anti-graft agencies the opportunity to carry out effective civil recoveries and forfeitures without much hassles. Let's take a listen.
Nigeria's country evaluation showed there were major gaps in our architecture to fight corruption. Of course, the poker that we have today, thankfully, tries to solve some of those problems. And it is an instrument that is very important to our fight against corruption. What does it say and all that? Perhaps because one plays in this field, we had gotten anticipation of the kinds of things that will happen. For example, the original advocacy was to create and set up an asset management agency. But given the cost of running government, which is high, and the burden that it is putting on government, that advocacy changed. I recall that I submitted a position to government to say, you don't have to create another agency, because we're looking for ways to rationalize the ones that are existing right now. You could transfer all of these responsibilities to existing agencies or create room for those that are existing to deal with the new issues. The government, the National Assembly, chose the second option. In spite of the interest of certain very powerful people to have a new agency, it was simply not sustainable. So they gave powers to manage assets to existing anti-corruption agencies. That's just one of the new things.
Welcome back. The focus is still on the recently passed Proceeds of Crime Recovery and Management Act POCA as it relates to ICPC's efforts. As ICPC is working tirelessly to tap into the gains of the POCA Act, stakeholders in the anti-corruption fight have also expressed a strong belief that the Commission is now at a vantage point to carry out conviction and non-conviction-based forfeitures.
The POCA is quite detailed about getting the value of the proceeds of the criminal activity. It says, when you are calculating that, do not take into account any property or any proceeds that have been subject to a forfeiture order or confiscation order that had been earlier made. Remember that this is conviction-based. So for instance, I decided to do the non-conviction-based forfeiture proceedings before filing the charges. And because I had ordered that certain property be forfeited to the federal government, when I'm calculating the value of the proceeds of the criminal activity, I will not take that into account because that has been taken care of already. That would be double jeopardy if I tell you to also pay for the value of this, because already those properties have been forfeited.
This development is a turning point in the war against corruption, in that there are notable shifts in the Act, particularly Section 72, which shift the burden of proof to the respondent in an action in rem. That was what yesterday has so much said on the non-commission-based asset recovery. Next slide, please. Section 1 of the law, 1A, 1E, F, and G, provides for a effective legal and institutional framework for the recovery and management of proceeds of crime, benefits derived therein, instrumentality of unlawful activities, and unclaimed properties reasonably suspected to be proceeds of crime. These provisions further strengthen existing laws in the Corrupt Practices Act in this regard.
Further to the series of workshops and advocacies lined up to equip officers of the Commission, the Director, Proceeds of Crime Department, Mr. Adedayo Kayode, in this exclusive chat, gave us more details on how the Commission is mining the gains of the POCA Act.
Promulgation and signing of the Proceeds of Crime Recovery and Management Act, known as POCA Act 2020. This act was signed into law on the 12th of May 2020, and that's why we call it POCA, 12th of May 2022, and that is why we call it POCA 2022. The journey started long before now. It first started with advocacies and all that, and then started with the legislative push, and then it's also came up as a sort of international pressure on Nigeria to come up with certain forms of legislations that will qualify us to be able to remain in the Committee of Nations when it comes to fighting corruption, money laundering, and illicit financial flow. We needed to have legislations that regulates the recovery and the management of assets, confiscated and forfeited assets. And that's what led to this law. And then before now, you'll discover that in many of the law enforcement legislations like ICPC and co, we already have power to recover assets. ICPC has power to manage assets to some level. Like we could return to victims, we can dispose perishable assets and the likes. But there was no robust national law that guides management and disposal of assets. So assets recovered by law enforcement agencies over the years were all being accumulated in a pile. And the Federal Ministry of Justice tried in the year 2019 to resolve this problem. It came out with Assets Regulation and Management, Assets Recovery and Management Regulation 2019, which gives some power to the Honorable Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation. And this culminated the setting up of an interministerial committee called Interministerial Committee on Disposal of Federal Government Forfeited Assets. All the recovery agencies and regulatory agencies were represented in that committee. They are there behind that Regulation 19, and then the High MC was to have all recovered assets domiciled in the central database, which is one of the things that international organizations were requesting for. They want Nigeria to have a central database that at the tip of your finger, you can mention the value of all assets that has been recovered within a given period. But when you have all these assets in silo cells and domiciled in the hand of various agencies, everybody quote his figure. There is no central pooling. And that was what that Regulation 2019 was out to achieve, and that IMC. So we also noted certain assets there, and it was pooled in the central database. The committee was supposed to dispose. Don't forget that that was fraught with some legislations, and then consequently, the push for the signing of POCA also gained more momentum, and POCA was signed into law on the 12th of May 2022. Now, with the signing into law of POCA, all assets that were initially pulled together and released to the Federal Ministry of Justice had to return to the law enforcement agencies. So every agency has to carry its asset, because POCA gives to all agencies the power to dispose. And then you dispose, and the process of disposal, POCA stipulated where it should be remitted to. There is an account to be opened with Central Bank of Nigeria by all agencies called Confiscated and Forfeited Properties Account, CFPA. All agencies have to have this, in which the chief executive of the agency is the chief accounting officer on that account. And the POCA also stipulates the way the proceeds in this account can be administered. It can only be administered in two forms. One, it can be administered by the president through the Federal Executive Council legislating and approving for it to be used for disaster management, for it to be used for law enforcement issues, for it to be used for security matters. These are specified activities to which proceeds from this account can be utilized for. And then the other one is to go for appropriation. Now, the National Assembly can also legislate and appropriate funds from this account, and those appropriations will go for provision of social amenities and infrastructures in the country. With the advent of the POCA 2022, Proceeds of Crime Act 2022, the act specifically provided that every law enforcement agencies that recover assets should set up a proceed of crime department. It even called it directorate, a proceed of crime directorate. You know that in public service, a directorate is a department. So what the commission just doing in their wisdom now is just to rename the same department that has been doing the job a proceed of crime department. And by proceed of crime department, the responsibilities of the department were also specified in the act, and this is strange enough. So the responsibility, the activities of the department were specified. It includes the tracing of assets, include asset investigation, it includes valuation, it includes engagement with professionals in the property management industry, auctioneers, estate valuers, and all that. It also includes disposal of assets and ensuring that the money are banked properly in the confiscated and forfeited properties account with the Central Bank of Nigeria. So the job became clearly spelled out. So when you discover that the Proceed of Crime Department now, POCD, has the whole of the responsibility of the previous ATRM and more. The challenges that we had faced earlier in asset tracing, recovery, and management largely has to do with fund has always been there. Number one, fund has always been there because asset recovery is highly capital intensive. You've got to travel, you've got to do a lot of traveling, a lot of moving around the country in locating assets, because asset tracing involves being able to track the asset to the point where they are, to the locations, and then tagging this asset for specific identification. And then you go for the recovery process. You signboard this asset, you mark this asset, or you bond the asset to an existing manager if it's a business. Then you go to the court, you follow through the forfeiture processes, and then you come back to management. And from all of this asset, we always have to put security men there guiding this asset, and this costs us a whole lot of money. It is highly capital intensive, as I've said earlier on. Now, asset recovery and management is not provided for in the budget, so no appropriation for it. The commission have to keep excusing from its overhead. But with the advent of poker has been able to make some provisions that you can incur management expenses on these assets and deduct it from the proceeds of sale. Now we have not sold any asset. ICPC since inception has not sold any asset up to date. So we have not. But the law is there now. The law guides us that when assets are disposed, from the proceed of that disposal, we can deduct funds that are expended in the management of the asset. And I think this is a watershed.
As ICPC continuously maintains, the fight against corruption must be sustained in the country for the benefit of present and future generations. It is believed that the enactment of the Poker Act by the present administration would not only help the Commission set a high standard for the recovery and confiscations of criminal assets, but would also serve as a deterrent against crime. That's our package on today's edition. You can watch episodes of Corruption Must Go on YouTube and follow us on social media platforms as shown on the screen. Thank you for watching. See you again next week at 3:30 p.m. on NTA Network and NTA International. Bye for now.